Hey everybody on YouTube, what's up? Warmachine here. Today I'm gonna give you guys a quick little ADC tier list for the most recent patch based on my gameplay and experiences in high level ranked and in competitive scrims with high level players. Um, Most of these spots on list are my personal opinion. Feel free to comment what you think in the comment section. But I'm first going to start off with hunters, obviously. So I think hunters are very across the board right now. Like we have S tier hunters, and then we have like dog shit, like poo poo tier hunters, right? So obviously, the first one that we're going to put in S tier is RAMA. RAMA is incredibly strong right now. He has the best level 1 of any hunter. He's got a great escape. He pairs very well with Silver Branch still as well, getting a lot of power and utility off of that item. He has one of the best hunter ults in the game. You kind of click 4 and you are safe from a team for 10 seconds, and you can help your front line kill the back line. Super strong in the meta that we're seeing right now in team fights because what you're kind of seeing in team fights is each other's front line dive the back line of each other's team, and characters like Rama have this ability to help his front line while still being in his back line. So yeah, pretty much. Next up for A tier hunters, I'm gonna start with ANHUR. I think ANHUR is super strong right now. I think that it's not even really the leap. The leap buff definitely helped, but Silver Branch not being in the meta is super good for ANHUR because he never really benefited that much from it in the first place. So having that extra item slot from Silver Branch being nerfed is super duper duper good for ANHUR because it allows him to go, that fail knot or some item that helps him exploit that early, like maybe even like an early Odysseus bow. He's pretty much the best in-lane hunter for boxing. ANHUR gives you like this really bad habit when you play him of literally you're just jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping on the ADC pretty much. So yeah, it honestly when I play ANHUR, I have this issue where I just like constantly am jumping on the ADC, and then like next game, I'm playing something like Heimdall, and I'm just like constantly trying to box, and I'm like, well, fuck, I can't do that because I'm not on ANHUR. Up next in the top tier hunters, I'm actually gonna put Heimdall. Speaking of Heimdall, I think Heimdall is incredibly strong right now because he has really good laning with his cleave autos, and he has really good clear. He's very safe with his Bifrost, and his ult is, I'd say, a top 4 hunter ult. He benefits greatly also off of Silver Branch not being meta, given that he has the slowest hunter attack speed by far. I mean, it's not even close. Like early game, it's quite miserable how slow his attack speed is, but it gets online later. Bifrost is a super strong ability in the meta that we're in currently with a duo side being so heavily lurked by supports and junglers. It's incredibly strong. To have this really good escape ability, and his ult as well. His ult is also a great escape option. Next for A tier, I'm going to slide Cupid. I think that Cupid is definitely a top 3 hunter right now. His ult's always really strong. His laning's also really strong as well because he kind of just clicks 4 in the wave in the enemy ADC. Super duper strong for box enemy hunters. He has really good CC, obviously, with his ult and his 1. He's got really good early and lane sustain before he even has Devos. That his 3 is a super strong ability. He has built-in attack speed in his kit, which is super strong. I do think so. This is like kind of a contested thing though. People talk to me about. They ask why is Cupid not in S tier. I think the thing that differentiates Rama and Cupid in S tier is that Rama just like feels better in this meta currently. I think with the way that team fights are being played and the gods that are seem to be meta. Also, Rama's early pressure is a game changer for sure. Next, we're gonna like start looking at B tier hunters. The first B tier hunter I'm gonna put is HACHIMAN. I could argue that HACHIMAN would go in A tier. But it just seems like he doesn't really have anything super unique about his kit other than his ult, which is still typically not even that unique. There's lots of hunter ults that are similar to his. I think that HACHIMAN's a super solid pick and has been a super solid pick for a long time, mainly because, one, he has good poke and good clear. His 3 is great for boxing, and it does a lot of damage early, and his ult is incredibly safe, and it's good for team fighting. But like I said, he just doesn't really have like that one thing about him that makes him seem like this like super high-end and top hunter that like makes you want to pick him every game. And see, it's just like really frustrating to play against. Like he just doesn't, he's very annoying to play into, but when you start to learn how to play against his ult and play around him practically having two sets of beads, the god becomes slightly less and less frustrating to play against. Up next for B tier hunters, I'm gonna throw in ULLR. I think ULLR kind of seems this weird spot in the meta right now because the builds, with Fail Not, they feel fine on him, but he's still this hunter that if you don't go trans on, it feels very, very, very awkward. Late game also feels very awkward as ULLR. He doesn't have like these great team fight abilities. The only thing that ULLR is really like super significant about late game is if you go a burst build, you can kind of just like click 3 on a mage and like 40% of the HP is gone. But other than that, his laning and boxing is super good. But laning and boxing doesn't really seem to be that prevalent compared to late game team fighting and hunters right now because honestly, it's pretty much just hide and farm until level 20 in this meta because of, all the duo side lurking. Okay, next up for B tier, I'm going to put Jingwei. I think that Jingwei is a solid hunter pick in the sense that she is the most aggressive hunter right now. And in the dual lane meta we're seeing right now, it's almost as if ADCs that are the most safe can play the most aggressive. Because, when she has her ult and her dash up, she's practically impossible to kill. So it allows her to be a little more risky with her plays, maybe invade purple when she doesn't know where the jungler is, stuff like that. Her clear is decent, and her late game is super strong. She is this unique character in this sense that you can like flex one crit item on her because she does have built-in crit to her kit. So you can go like this, when you pop her 2, you can go like a Wind Demon, and you can have 60% crit, which is super solid. But you're also not dedicating your whole entire kit to building crit. When items such as like Odysseus Bow and Kins are such meta and so strong right now that you don't want to go that crit build and miss out on them. Next up in B tier, I'm going to throw Chernobog. I think that Chernobog is a very underrated hunter right now. The only thing that really doesn't feel good about his kit is his 1. I do think that they will adjust it soon, but his ult is super solid. It's kind of like a worse version of RAMA ult, but I still think it's a good ult. It's good for early rotations. And it's good for getting across the map when he needs to. It's also very good if you're getting ganked, you can click 4, and when your team comes, you can land back again, stuff like that. His clear is super strong. His 2 is an incredibly strong stem. His 3 is in a great escape. Like I said, that has that same sense where you can, if you're being ganked, you can click 3 into a wall, and you can just literally sit there for like 6 seconds, and while your team rotates back. It's the same sense with Realm ult, like I said. Up next in B tier hunters, I'm going to throw NEITH. I think that NEITH's in like this really weird spot right now where she feels good, but like I said, like this not going trans build on her feels a bit awkward in my opinion. She does have very low auto attack scaling, so that is why the trans build doesn't feel super good on her because she's practically hitting for nothing. It feels like early game when she goes that Devos build. I think that the change in unique backflip 3 a while ago was super healthy for her. I think that she benefits from it greatly. I think her clear is super strong, and one of the strongest things about her right now actually is that it almost feels like when your 2 is level 3, if you hit an enemy ADC with it, it's almost as if they like cannot fight you at all with that attack speed steal that you get from it. She feels super weird to play into, and her ult is also incredibly strong. NEITH ult's always been good. It always will be good, and especially in coordinated team environments, right? Because, also, like I said, when we're looking at this dive meta, I'm going to say I'm NEITH ulting Morrigan, and then, we're going to go in on Morrigan. Fail Not also feels super good on her with her ult. Next up in B tier, I'm going to throw XBAL. I think XBAL's super strong right now with the build path. Not going trans on him can feel a little weird, but as long as you watch your mana super well, I think that he can be fine in terms of the build path. I think that his ult is an incredibly strong ability despite them taking out the stun a little while ago. That never really was the reason why he was super strong. His passive's a really good passive. You kind of just get free power from doing damage to enemies. But the main thing about this god is that his ult is so strong, right? So like as an early game ADC, if there's a team fight or somewhere else in the map and I click 4, and I get 30-40 gold per an assist, that's a really big deal, you know what I'm saying? Because like getting that boots on a minute earlier for the enemy ADC or that Devos on a minute earlier for the ADC is it's game breaking. It is a colossal deal to get that early gold with those assists, but also not only even just getting the the gold and the XP from the assists. The ult is just a super strong ability in a coordinated team environment. Being if you're getting dove or if you are diving an enemy team, the ult is so discombobulating and it's so calm cluttering. It is it's very hard to play into sometimes. Also, Fail Not, which is a very prevalent item, is very good on this character right now. He can proc it from double the distance of normal hunters with his auto attacks. And it just feels very good with his ult. Next up in B tier, I'm gonna put Ho Yi. I think Ho Yi feels fine right now. There's just something that just doesn't feel that right about him. His ult feels good. His 3 has always kind of been like this weaker ability that just kind of feels like this lackluster escape that it pairs well with this too. But typically in dual lane, if you're 2ing and 3ing as Ho Yi and doing ADC, you're gonna die. There's someone waiting. Like I said, his ult always feels strong. His early is just very, very bad, and you can kind of get out pressured and your purple taken very easily into this god. The build path feels fine on him. He does have a low base attack speed and no stim. So that Kins on him isn't going to feel as good as other ADCs. But for the most part, I think Ho Yi's fine right now. Nothing too crazy. Not really going to be drafting any comps around him. Up next in B tier, I'm going to throw Medusa. I think that Medusa, I think that her 1 and her ult are fine abilities. But the issue with this god is that her 2 and her 3 are just such bad abilities. The 3 dash is so easy for enemies to play against when they're diving you. It's so easy to catch you out on this god. Her 2 feels like this fine ability in laning phase, if even fine, not even always fine. It feels like not even that great of lane clear. It doesn't poke super well against good players. They're gonna obviously walk in front of the wave, so it's not even hitting them. So the 2 and the 3 feel very weird late game, which is where ADCs do shine the most. Her ult is a good ult. Obviously, the higher level you are, the easier it is for people to play against. But Fail Not does feel really strong in this item. When you get Kins and you pop her 1 late game, you're pretty much shredding any tank. I think that she's a reliable ADC pick, but I wouldn't lean on her too much for a composition and stuff like that. Next, I'm gonna move lower a tier. I'm gonna put Apollo in C tier. This Apollo is my favorite god. Don't get me wrong. He is by far my favorite god. But he just feels like this really, really... He's just in this awkward spot right now where, his 2 feels good, and his 1 feels good, and his 3 feels good, and his ult feels good. But it just doesn't really feel like he has that much effect on the game as hunters, as other hunters like a RAMA or an ANHUR. The biggest issue with Apollo is mainly that if you're ulting into an enemy backline, you're probably going to die. They're pretty much going to collapse on you. You're forced to dash out as soon as you land, typically, and you're just going to end up dying. Seems like other ADCs, like RAMA and HEIMDALLR, they just do what he does, but better. And, sometimes when it comes down to it, that is what makes some characters bad. Is it's just like, why would I play this character when I can play this character, Up next in C tier, I'm going to throw CERNUNNOS. I think CERNUNNOS is a decent god right now. I think he's kind of on the side of being really bad, mainly because of his passive. His passive is this horrible, useless passive. If you don't know his passive, it's that he gets cleave autos up close, and they deal I want to say it's 15 or 25% of regular damage of his normal autos. Not really that useful in a hunter, not really anything you're looking for. Just not something that you're going to really be utilizing late game. His 1's a good ability if you're good at keeping up with it. His 2 is like a very lackluster ability. It feels like it should poke for more. The root's good on it, but it just doesn't feel like it pokes for as much as it should. The 3, I think that the dash is definitely his 2nd strongest ability, and the ult feels good. It just kind of feels very easy to play against. Like maybe the polymorph doesn't last long enough, or maybe he should be CC immune in it to make him feel better. I think if they made him CC immune in it and make him a stronger hunter. Up next in C tier, I'm going to put AMC. I think that AMC is actually pretty good right now because of this Silver Branch build. His 1, he is probably the best hunter to go Silver Branch on because of his 1 giving him that passive attack speed. Super duper strong with Silver Branch. He can get almost like 50 stacks of it very easily with his 1. The issue with this god is unfortunately that he's so easy to kill, and he just doesn't really bring that much to the table that's like super great other than like his AoE slows. He creates a lot of space in fights. But other than that, this god just doesn't really feel like he does that much, and that is why I'm going to put him in C tier. Up next in C tier, I'm going to put Artemis. Oop, not DC. Artemis is in this spot where she has... If we were talking about ultimate abilities, I'd put her with Rom. I think Artemis ult is one of the best ultimate ability or hunter abilities in the game. It's pretty much like a Cupid ult, but like better. In the sense that it has more range, it's a stun, it's less predictable. She gets CC immunity, stuff like that. But unfortunately, the rest of her kit just feels very lackluster, right? Like her 3 is an okay ability, I guess, for early. It's good poke. Her 2 is a very strong stem, but her trap feels like it makes sense with her kit. But just not like having anything super overwhelmingly strong in that first ability slot just feels very awkward on this god. Like I said, the trap feels like it pairs well with her kit. But as an Artemis, you're just really going to end up dying, honestly. She just kind of just gets farmed. It's really unfortunate because I think the character's really fun, and her ultimate is very strong. But she just kind of is put in this spot where she's not able to fight many other ADCs in lane, and she just kind of dies, honestly. It's really disappointing. Up next in C tier, I'm going to put Chiron. I think that Chiron's meh, doesn't really do much. He has good poke, doesn't feel good with the Devos build at all, honestly. He runs out of mana pretty easily if he doesn't have trans. But then when you go this trans slot, you know, you're not getting the lifesteal on as early. You're not getting the Odysseus bow on as early. You're not getting this Kins on as early. His passive is literally useless. His 3 is a somewhat strong ability. His 2's meh. His 1's meh. His ult's pretty strong, but he just doesn't really do that much compared to all these other hunters above him. All right, starting in D tier, I'm going to put IZANAMI. This god is horrible. Do not play IZANAMI. On paper, IZANAMI's kit seems like she would be one of the strongest hunters. If I were to not play Smite, and I were to look at her kit, I would think, wow, that is a strong hunter. Her autos cleave. She has a slow. She has a decent escape. You know, her stem looks like it's good, and her ult looks like it's good. But when you really play this character in game, you really realize that the only thing that's good about this character is her early pressure. But when you play against her, you also realize that it's almost as if like this pressure's fake, in the sense that she clears wave, and then it's just like, what next? Like, what does this character do after she clears wave? She's literally a 10 times sheer version of RAMA. I mean, she literally does the exact same thing that he does wave 1, except after that she is useless. Her autos hit for absolutely no damage early. Her stem is decent, but it's kind of goofy that a hunter stem is that her autos do damage. Like, that's what it feels like, right? Her 2 is this very weak ability that doesn't really feel like it does that much. It's just like an AoE auto almost in the sense. Her 3 is this super weak escape ability that has a really long cast time and it's super predictable to follow up on. And her ult feels good. I mean, it's a decent ultimate ability, but it just, I don't know, it's not enough to really make this god a high-end hunter. Her passive is a good passive, but for what you tend to be doing on hunters, being low HP and doing more damage is like just really not going to benefit you that much. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm also going to put SKADI in D tier. Unfortunately, I think that SKADI is very weak right now. She can bully in lane if she gets ahead, but like I said, lane bullying doesn't really matter. This god kind of just dies. Trans build is really the only way you can is the only build path you can go on her on this one shot build, and then that leaves you out of the opportunity of getting these this oboe and this strong Kins meta we're in right now. So yeah, I think that god she's been very weak for a long time. All right, up next, let's look at the mages. Starting with Freya. I'm going to put Freya in B tier. I think that she could be moved up to A tier, but I think for higher level games, I think that Freya is pretty middle of the pack. This miserable early game against these like heavy pressure warriors is really, really bad. You know, like, you can pair her with these heavy pressure warriors, and then I would put her in A tier. But, you know, that's not always, you don't always want to draft a comp around a hunter pick, or I guess an ADC pick, you would say. With these Hecate nerfs that went through a while ago, she doesn't feel as strong, but you're going to tend to be rushing that hasten ring on her, and it just takes a little while to get online, and she just doesn't feel as good as some of these other hunters without having any early lane pressure. She's very easy to play against late game. You kind of just buy thorns, and whenever her 2's down, you kill her. Up next, we're going to look at Chronos. I'm going to put Chronos in C tier. I think that Chronos is a decent mid laner right now, but I just don't think he fits well into the ADC role. I think that the ring build feels very bad on him. Full power build feels good somewhat on him in mid. Like I said, I think he's like he's a very middle of the pack mid laner as well, but full ring build on Chronos doesn't feel very strong. It seems like he doesn't really do any damage. His ult's useful. It's a nice ultimate. His 2's great. His passive's great. But like I said, with this ring build, it just doesn't really feel like his abilities do that much damage, and he just feels like on other characters, you're just outputting a lot more damage, even when you get late game on this character. Up next, we're going to put Soul. I'm going to put Soul in C tier as well. Absolute glass cannon. Horrible early game. Lackluster late game. Feels fine late game. Passive feels great, but just like I said, not really having that much effect on the pace of the game. Very easy to kill. Super countered by anti-heal. But she just feels like she's in this position where mid game she's kind of getting blown up because she has a very low health pool, and it takes about 4 or 5 items for her to really start doing damage, and it just shouldn't take you that long as an ADC. Like your team's already lost the game by then because it's a 45. Any other mages? OLORUN I'm gonna put at. This is tough. I'm going to put him at A tier. This is tough. I think he's very in the middle. I think if there was like a B+ between the A, I'd put him there. I think that OLORUN's ultimate is the only thing that is keeping him in this A tier slot. He's very easy to kill. But he's very frustrating to play against in an organized team environment, and sometimes even in ranked. He has very good lane clear. He's very hard to box as hunters. Some hunters have trouble boxing him even early, which is kind of crazy because he is a mage. His passive is super strong. He can crit as a mage, which is absolutely insane. Obviously that can be countered by spectral, but the god does a shitload of damage without critting anyways, so it's not even like it matters that much if they build spectrals. So yeah, I think that his ultimate is honestly the main thing. I guess we could fit Poseidon in there. I'm just gonna put Poseidon in C tier. It doesn't really do well in the ADC role. It's decent. Feels better in mid, even jungle. Very weak laning phase. Can't really fight much at all. Very, very weak sieging god. And in this meta we're seeing, it's very tough to siege into proper teams, and not having a hunter can be very difficult to. It can be a very difficult thing for some teams to play with. When they don't have like that incredible, Phoenix burn or tower burn. I think that's it for all the mages. Up next, we got assassins. Okay, we'll do Tsukuyomi. I think Tsukuyomi is an A tier ADC. A lot of people are gonna disagree with me on this, but a lot of behind the scenes play of Tsukuyomi. You haven't really seen him that much in, streamers, and I mean maybe high end high end ranked players. You'll see him a lot in ranked. But this character in the ADC role is very intriguing. It's almost impossible for any hunter to ever fight him. Even if they have Aegis, because he is a hunter killer. He does have that disarm. He has a stun. His ult makes him take reduced damage. He does half of a hunter's HP. And transitioning into this late game, it's very hard to lane against him, and he's pretty much going to be rotating mid and winning his team these fights. Pretty much one-shotting a mage, getting items online as quick as possible. And in the ADC role, that is a very easy thing to do because of the fact that he has so much farm available to him that he doesn't have in other roles. He just seems to always be so far ahead of everybody. Set, I'm going to put in A tier. If we were talking about Set as a character as a whole, I think that Set is an S tier character. Across the board, Set is an S tier character. But in terms of ADC, I think he's an A tier. And like I said, same thing as Tsukuyomi. Impossible to box for hunters. There are some hunters that do better into him, like HEIMDALLR does very well into Set and Tsukuyomi. But if HEIMDALLR's not on the board, Set's pretty much going to farm your ADC. And he's going to rotate mid, and he's going to win his team the game. The downside of these two characters is that if you can hold on enough to their early pressure, it's very difficult for them to siege late game if they are not super duper comfortable with the pick. But for the most part, super strong, can pretty much win their team the game in like 10 minutes if they play it correctly. So yeah, I think that is it. I don't think there are really any other super strong ADC players or ADC gods other than those. So yeah, this is gonna be it for me. Um, yeah. Feel free to argue with me in the comments section. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. Make sure to like, subscribe. I'm new to YouTube. This is my first video. I'll have about like 2 or 3 videos a week. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.